Good Friday afternoon. I'm Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille show. It's good to be with you. We are live in Charlottesville in Central Virginia in the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. We have a good show lined up for you. Lee Elberson, the Chief Executive Officer of Clayborne Education, a serial entrepreneur, someone who is very big with the CIC, and I think he's the head of the board. I'll let him clarify on that. One of the leaders, undoubtedly, of the Community Investment Collaborative is going to join us. He's going to spotlight education, juniors, SAT tests, what happened? Seniors, are they going to grounds? Are they going to a campus? Are they leaving their home to go to college in August, or are they doing it in this capacity? Okay, we're going to be talking entrepreneurship. He works alongside as a mentor with small businesses across Central Virginia. What should you be doing if you didn't get the PPP loan? What should you be doing if you have $0 in relief funding? I can offer some insight because we haven't gotten any relief funding, our family or small business, of what we've done that's been successful. I'll tap Lee's brain about that. Melissa Close-Hart's going to join us at 1:10. She's the executive chef at Junction restaurant. Her husband, Matty Hart, the executive chef at the local restaurant. Their restaurant group, which is owned by Adam Frazier, a fabulous Belmontonian and entrepreneur, are one of the market leaders in adapting to COVID-19 and still making really good food in Charlottesville, high quality food, and selling it to customers who want to pay for it. They are excelling in this. Wilson Ritchie at the Whiskey Jar is as well. Fabio's on East High Street is as well. These were the first to market. Wilson Ritchie's 10-course hospitality, Melissa Close-Hart, Adam Frazier, and Matty Hart at the local and Junction, and this restaurant group. They've combined forces with Junction and the local. And Mike and Sal, Mike Scotto and Sal at Fabio's on East High Street, those are three market leaders. Everyone else has been playing catch-up. Maya Restaurant's been a market leader in the curbside takeout business model. We're going to talk about what has helped them become market leaders with a number of restaurateurs watching the program and chefs, and how they have adapted to continue to make good food, sell it at a fair price, continue to employ their staff and pay them money, and make the consumer, the marketplace, me and you, happy. We are an advertising agency at VMV Brands. We represent a lot of clients, 112 now to be exact, from New Providence, New Jersey, where we have a satellite office, and I fly up there quarterly, to Asheville, North Carolina, most of them in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Two of our favorites, Interstate Pest and Service Companies, and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. I'm seeing firsthand how they are committed to their team members and the community and servicing the community in a safe and responsible way and being mindful of leaving their footprint in a better place than they first arrived. It's Interstate Pest and Service Companies and the talented Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. We've had success with headlines on the show. Today's Friday. I want to run through headlines that I'm watching. Again, a voracious appetite for reading I have. And I understand that a lot of the stuff from a macro and a micro standpoint is going to impact the food that you have in your refrigerator, the money that you have in your wallet, the opportunity for you to go to Three Notched or Champion or King Family or Keswick Vineyards or to Fleury or to Citizen Burger Bar, Wild Wing Cafe, Boylan Heights, whatever it may be, is dependent on some of the stuff that's out there that we're going to try to digest on a day-to-day basis here. So Judah Wickhauer is our director. The first headline that you should follow undoubtedly very closely is the reopening of business in the state of Georgia, which is happening right now. If you could cue that headline and give me the thumbs up. Georgia reopens hair salons, gyms, thank you, and bowling alleys in its state. That happened today. That happened this morning. On Monday, movie theaters and music venues open. This, and I've been really spotlighting it all week, will determine a lot of things. With the governor of Virginia, will determine a lot of things with the states around Georgia, and will determine a lot of things with other governors in the country feeling pressure from nearby states to open themselves. If it goes well, Georgia reopening, the economy will rebound, jobs will come back to life, and it will have a domino or trickle-over effect, starting first with states in the Southeast and the Mid-Atlantic, and then spreading elsewhere. I think you can also think the Republican governors, the governors that are Republican, are also perhaps more inclined to open first as well, so follow that metric. This is important. If this goes well, this is going to impact the rest of the country and certainly Charlottesville and Central Virginia. I'm following that closely. A second topic I'm following closely, and it's something that came up on yesterday's program with the conversation of what to do with the Downtown Grill. The Downtown Grill is a Class A restaurant space that is now permanently been vacated by the Downtown Grill and the Perry Restaurant Group out of Lynchburg, Virginia. We asked what to do with these locations. What's going to happen with these locations? I'm taking it a step further and asking you, the viewer, which restaurant districts in Charlottesville are most vulnerable right now? And I'm torn on this. Which are the most vulnerable restaurant districts in Charlottesville, Virginia right now? I'm torn on this. First, I think it's important to identify the restaurant districts. Downtown Charlottesville is undoubtedly a restaurant district. Midtown Charlottesville on West Main Street is undoubtedly a restaurant district. The Corner is a restaurant district. I think Belmont has become a restaurant district. Barracks Road, a restaurant district. Stonefield, although that's in Albemarle County, it's basically on the line, a restaurant district. Which ones are the most vulnerable? I have to say, I think it's got to be the Stonefields and the Barracks of the world. They have the highest dollar per square foot. The most expensive rents in the city of Charlottesville are in Barracks Road Shopping Center in Stonefield. We've seen that with the closure of Trevinia Restaurant. We've seen that with the closure of Pasture in Stonefield. We've seen that with the closure of restaurants in Barracks Road Shopping Center as well. Buffalo Wild Wings moved away from Barracks Road Shopping Center. That immediately comes to mind. There's been some turnover there. I think it's those two districts that are the most vulnerable because they have the highest price per square. Barracks Road's, their landlord, Barracks Road Shopping Center, is a publicly traded company in Federal Realty. Federal Realty is an intelligent publicly traded company, and they have pivoted their model over the last 18 to 24 months to experiential type shopping centers and properties. Federal Realty, the owner of Barracks Road Shopping Center, had done. Experiential type tenants. Experiential type tenants like local gyms, like restaurants, and pivoted slightly away from retail. We saw that in Barracks Road with more gyms and restaurants coming to that shopping center and less brick and mortar restaurant emphasis. We saw that. Here's the problem from a Federal Realty standpoint, a publicly traded company that's responsible to its shareholders and the landlord of Barracks Road Shopping Center. Here's the problem. The pivot in their model, and they were right to make this pivot, and I was championing this pivot all along on this network to experiential retail, gyms, restaurants, stuff that you cannot get on Amazon. That's the exact demographic of business that's getting impacted the most. So their pivot, the pivot that was the smart one to do because no one could have predicted a worldwide pandemic that hasn't happened in a couple of generations. Okay, the smart pivot to do was to go to experiential retail like gyms and restaurants. Those are the ones that are really getting messed up here. So I think the ones that are most vulnerable, dining districts in Charlottesville, because of the price per square foot, because it's a publicly traded company in Federal Realty owning Barracks Road Shopping Center, because the publicly traded company has responsibilities to its shareholders. I think the restaurants in Barracks Road Shopping Center, and then the restaurants in Stonefield. Stonefield is owned by a private equity firm out of New York. A PE firm out of New York owns Stonefield. Those two are the most vulnerable because its landlords are not local. Its landlords are not the neighbors we see like the Ludwig Kutners of the world and the Bill Nichmans of the world. And as a result, the Charlie Kabashes of the world, as a result, because they're not local landlords, they're most susceptible to closures. So if I had to say where some more closings were going to happen, I would point to those two dining districts. And I hope to God that there's going to be no closings. Interesting topic. We'll get to the topics and questions that are coming on the feed right now. Lee Elberson, Chief Executive Officer of Clayborne Education, is going to join us in about 5 minutes. Let's go to John Blair's screenshot from his Twitter feed. John Blair, fabulous attorney in town. In fact, he's the attorney at the city of Charlottesville, a man who I respect tremendously. Thank you. He has this screenshot on Twitter, and I cannot agree with him more. The screenshot is, for the foreseeable future, economic development will not be about jobs, but rather attracting people with jobs who want to live in your city, county, and can telework. Basically, what he is saying is the future of economic development is, can you get clusters of people to choose to live in your town and be a digital nomad, work from home. I learned that from my brother-in-law, Wes Linsky. Can you get a cluster of people, encourage them to move from one town to another town, from Lynchburg to Charlottesville, from Harrisburg to Charlottesville, from Richburg to Charlottesville, from outside the Commonwealth to the Charlottesville, and encourage them with the outdoors, with ACC sports, with the music scene, the restaurant scene, the downtown mall, the vibrancy of breweries and vineyards. That's us. And encourage them to locate here, because everyone's going to be working in their PJs and their underpants and their BVDs and their boxers and their tank tops and their pajamas on a computer like this, and when they have to take a Zoom meeting, they may put a coat on and a tie, but they're still going to have shorts and sandals. And if you're working from your living room, and we're creating a culture of digital nomads, an economy of digital nomads, a local workforce of digital nomads, then attracting those digital nomads to your community is what economic development is. And you have to leverage the gems or the resources you have in your community to attract the digital nomads. Charlottesville has a lot to offer. So if it goes to a digital nomad space, Charlottesville has a lot to offer. I'm going to throw that to Lee Elberson. He's had to become essentially a digital nomad in his home office, his home studio, his home think tank. And what he thinks digital nomads, and I hope you're thinking about this one, Lee, how digital nomads and that workforce is going to impact economies. There are currently 400,000 Virginians out of work. 400,000 Virginians out of work. This does not account for the tens of thousands of Virginians who have been furloughed or had their pay reduced. That's worth reiterating. There's 26 million Americans on the unemployment line. Over 26 million Americans on the unemployment line. There's 400,000 plus Virginians on the unemployment line, and tens of thousands have also been furloughed or had their pay reduced. This is something you should follow. The folks who are on the unemployment line or have had their pay reduced already were the most economically vulnerable in our community, that were living paycheck to paycheck and had little savings in their bank. Now, the folks that otherwise were working in restaurants, food and beverage, tourism and hospitality are behind the eight ball even more, because they've been furloughed, or they're on the unemployment line, or they're not sure if their job's going to even have a place for them when the economy returns. What I'm saying with this is, everyone should be extremely fearful that the wealth gap is going to increase in America. You should be very mindful of this, because middle, upper class, and higher have the burn rate to withstand what's happening. Folks that were living paycheck to paycheck do not. And that's going to increase the gap even larger. And that makes me uneasy. Because when that gap and that delta gets too large, then you really see social issues rise, as they should, to the forefront. And then you have another dynamic that you're dealing with. I want to talk about that with Lee Elberson. I've been very intrigued about Governor Cuomo in New York and how he's very quickly become the face of COVID-19. I think you have Dr. Fauci, who's become the face of COVID-19, and Governor Cuomo. And Cuomo coming on TV and giving the numbers and updating us on the metrics of cases and confirms and deaths and the overall picture of his respective state is something the entire country is following. And that literally is determining what's happening with the stock market and the consumer confidence of people all over America. So Cuomo is getting a lot of face time, if you have not realized, and he's building quite a profile. I'm very curious to see what Cuomo, who is the 56th governor of New York, a Democrat, his father was a governor in New York for 3 terms, his father was. He's become the face of COVID-19. I'm curious to see what happens with him and his political future as he leverages the spotlight. Judah, I'm going to reach out to Lee Elberson. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Clayborne Education. I'm Skyping him now, Judah. We're going to welcome him to the show and pick his big, beautiful brain about all things in the education space, all things in the entrepreneurial space, all things in the COVID space. He's good people. He's a smart guy. He's on the line. Judah, do we have your thumbs up to go to him? We do. All right. On the Skype hotline here on the I Love CVille show, Lee Elberson. My friend, first, thank you for joining us. It is Friday, April 24th. Every day, the world is changing. Give us a sneak peek on how it's changing on your end and stuff that you're seeing that we should be considering.
Sure, man. We just want to let you know, hey, look, I did a casual Friday vibe today. I'm wearing a T-shirt.
I like it.
No pocket square today.
I like it.
And also, I just need to give you a shout out. I want to say thanks so much for your support and guidance. Our Facebook Live event yesterday for college admissions in the wake of COVID-19 was a huge success. I mean, we only had 20 people watching, but still, it wouldn't have been successful without all the help from you. And I took a lot of cues from your show. So thanks so much for that.
Oh, fantastic. I like it. Well, it's our pleasure. Give us an update, Lee. Show's yours.
Okay. So, I think there's different layers of stress when you're the leader of an organization, and like you, I like to put myself in those leadership roles. I think I'm a good leader. I enjoy that. But I think when you're in these sort of positions, you're not working a 9-to-5 job. I always put my employees first, and it's not just the fact that they get paid first. It's like I want to respect their time. And so I'll be honest, the last couple weeks, it's been really difficult to find times to have stress, to basically control my stress. Haven't been outside near as much as I should. Haven't been doing yoga or exercise near as much as I should. So, I think it's really easy to sort of get caught up on the news. So I did start something this week. The very first thing I do in the morning is I drink a glass of water and I spend 30 minutes not in front of any sort of screens or electronics. I just go outside. And so definitely have seen my stress levels go down. It's hard though, I think. There's just so much happening. I think I was at a conference last week and somebody was asking me about the content, and I told our sales manager, I said, you have to push this out today because news gets so stale now. I mean, something that happened last week, that's old news, right? SBA programs, small business programs, that stuff gets very stale. So I'm trying to find a balance with keeping on top of things, but not getting so obsessed with it that I don't have time to, like I said, just get some relaxation in. But I think as you know, there's it's Clayborne Education takes a big part of my time. The company 8 Hats, which is I'm a business partner with my brother-in-law. That web hosting company definitely takes some time. Community Investment Collaborative is taking time, but we're really lucky to have Stephen Davis and Rebecca Haydock at the helm. They are just two of the most competent EDs I've ever met in my life. And then I have my own nonprofit starting, the Better Future Foundation, which we are sort of at a funding stall, but we're still serving students. So, I think that there's a lot of different pieces. So that's where I'm at right now.
You got props coming in from Robert Gray. He says, my boy Lee, can't wait to see him. Hope Raina's watching. She says, I can't wait to hear and talk with Lee. Questions already coming in from Lee Elberson. We'll get to these questions. Put them in the comment section. I'll try to relay them to him. Paul Johnston, I'll get to your question. All right, let's cut to the chase here. If you were a betting man, and you're an entrepreneur, so you are a betting man in a lot of ways. If I said that the odds are that the University of Virginia students are on grounds in the fall for the start of fall semester. And I'm going to put those odds at 3-1. What kind of bet?
3-1 against them going.
I'm a positive guy. I'm going to say 3-1 that they are going, but I'm going to cut to the chase. We had
Heather. We had
Heather Hill on this network on Tuesday, and she's a city councilor, and she's already hearing they're not coming back. So you're basically saying no chance they come back in the fall.
I mean, I'm not going to say no chance. The percentage of them coming back, maybe I'm a little pessimistic, 10%. I just don't. I just don't see it being feasible that they come back.
Oh man, distance learning is a topic that's on the thread. Is that the future? Is that the right terminology? Distance learning.
Distance learning, virtual learning. Yeah, I think that's at the top of everyone's mind, and we got a ton of questions about this yesterday. I think you can take cues from major organizations like the College Board and the ACT. These are billion-dollar organizations, and they have announced that they are going to be implementing take-from-home tests in the fall. They have a lot more resources than I do, but what I gather from that is that they are talking to the heads of universities and the heads of school systems, and they're hearing that they're not going back. They're not putting students back in classrooms in the fall. So we're taking our cues from that. As you know, I'm a bit of a COVID modeling enthusiast. I have my spreadsheet. I have my graph up here right now. I don't think we're not returning to normal. I don't think we're ever going to return to normal. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to continue to do distance learning and virtual learning in the fall. It's really a matter of what happens in the spring. So do the colleges say, okay, everyone has to come back on grounds? Or now that they have this format where you can do distance learning, do they let some students come back to do virtual learning, some students on campus? And is the price the same? That's another big concern. Some parents are like, I'm not paying $40,000 for my kids to do Zoom sessions at the University of Virginia. I'll figure out something else.
Literally one of my posted notes right here. Literally, smart man, Lee Elberson. Lee Kussman, I'm going to get to your question. I promise you. Paul, I'm going to get to your question. I have a question coming in from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm going to get to your question, Christoph, I promise you. That's the question I have for you that you just hit on. Fall, we strike. I agree. I was being hopeful. Fall ain't going to happen. If spring does not happen, what is the two guys at a bar having a conversation? What is the chitter-chatter of spring semesters don't happen at colleges, of colleges changing forever, and it being this virtual Helen Dragas type of situation as opposed to a brick-and-mortar classroom situation?
It's tough to believe that in a year we wouldn't be able to gather in a classroom, and I think what we realized is that doing distance learning, there's a lot of inequity there. One of the things that the school system has always provided, even if we go to Louisiana, my home state, sort of bottom in the nation in terms of education, the school systems, you could complain all day long. The two things they provide is structure and accountability. You have a place to put kids, and they have some structure of the classes. Once you take that away and you tell students they have to learn from their house, how do you ensure that they have an environment that's conducive of learning, and how do you ensure that they have an internet connection and the tools necessary? I don't think you can without massive amounts of resources. We're talking multiple billions, possibly trillions of dollars to try to implement something like that. So we have to rethink how we make education work. And that doesn't even address the fact that even the most resource students might have some tactile preference where they just don't learn well reading off a screen. They learn best on a piece of paper. Plus, you probably get this. When you're on a screen, can you always focus on one tab?
No.
Or is that little ding going to cause you to be like, oh, that's right, I forgot to send this email? You're constantly multitasking. And if students are doing that too, they're not getting the same education as they would in a classroom.
We are live on 12 different Facebook pages with Lee Elberson, the Chief Executive Officer of Clayborne Education. Jessica Davis has a message for you. She says, Lee is not being boastful about being a fantastic leader. He really is one. It's great to see his face. I'm missing Clayborne Education and his words of wisdom, something fierce these days. Jen Finazzo is watching. She and her family own Sal's Cafe Italia and the real estate that is Sal's Cafe Italia. Welcome, Jen and the Finazzo family. We love you guys. Okay, this is a topic that came up on the show this week. UVA had to reimbursed roughly $18 million in sleeping quarters, dormitory costs, and the food allotment with Aramark and its cafeteria, room and board, essentially. It was not reimbursing second semester because UVA said it was giving its doing its value proposition, providing what it should provide for the second semester, so it wasn't reimbursing tuition, but it was reimbursing room and board, $18 million. That is a chunk of money. On another show on this network earlier in the week, we learned that the University of Virginia hospital system, Lee, was losing $80 million a month. UVA hospital is losing $80 million a month. That is horrifying because they're bombarded with COVID-19 as opposed to like elective surgeries where their margin's much better, and COVID-19 where a lot of times they're dealing with folks that don't have health insurance or can't pay. So where I'm going with this is how, in two guys at a bar spitballing, you're a trusted guy in this community. I can't even pretend to be a guy like a Jim Ryan right now, whose business model is hemorrhaging everywhere and bleeding everywhere, and he has to right the ship. How do you right this ship as a visionary, as a CEO, as a business owner, which you are, my friend, a Renaissance man, and wear all those caps?
Yeah, I think I think it's important to acknowledge the deficits in the system that you're doing, to recognize that it's not a replacement for in-class learning, and take advantage of, don't try to reproduce what you're doing in the classroom, right? This is the perfect time to sort of drop the playbook, right? University of Virginia, probably above any other organization, is an organization where they just sometimes they do things just because that's the way it's always been done, right? Now is the time to just forget about that and sort of rewrite how you deliver these sort of classes. And maybe classes aren't even classes anymore. Project-based learning and small group learning has always proven to be a more effective way for students to learn. So great. You're not limited by the faculty limitations, right? Like, you can only put so many faculty members in front of so many students. Once you remove that limitation, why put 30 students in a classroom? Why not put 4 or 5 and they do project-based learning like they do at Harvard Business School and UVA's Darden, right? That's a much more effective way to learn. So I would assume that those conversations are happening, and they're just figuring out, how do we change 200 years of education pedagogy without seeming like we're doing some sort of emergency change? So Jim Ryan's probably a lot smarter guy than I. I'm sure they've got that, they're having these discussions, but that's what I would be doing.
A lot of comments coming in. Live on 12 Facebook pages. Hannah Deal says, it's not a question, but nice shirt. I almost put that exact one on today, and I also agree about him being a good leader. I'm going to add this. The shirt accentuates Lee Elberson's baby blues, don't they? All those that are watching right now, the baby blues are sparkling. Lee Elberson looking good right now. All right, I'm going to throw...
Jerry, just for that, man, hey, I'm going to send you one of these t-shirts.
I'll wear it on a show, I swear, from start to finish.
Good.
Okay, I'm going to throw this to you. Man to man here. Dude, I am far from the smartest guy out there, and I have very few talents. Very few talents. But one of the things that I learned in college, and it's serving me well today, is how to interact with people and understanding human behavior and kind of staying one step ahead. And where I first started developing that skill set, basically doing what you got to do and how to survive. And where I first started developing that skill set was in college. And I don't think one item that should be undervalued is that 4-year transitionary period that happens away from home and before the real world that allows young men and women to become men and women and gets them ready for work. I mean, I can't even possibly imagine if I had to go straight into it as an 18-year-old. So the value proposition of the socialization and the in-person connection and living on your own in 4 years and figuring out, that's something that shouldn't be undervalued. And I feel as a branding guy, that should be leveraged in a campaign to create value prop for the in-person model.
I'm not going to disagree with you that I think that there's I mean, I own a tutoring company, and our biggest value proposition has always been that we are in person, face to face. The students don't get distracted. You can read their body language. You can sort of look at them and say, are they really engaged? Do they really get it? And that's definitely lost in a virtual environment. But again, we talked about this last time. Is this the time to look at this is not an opportunity? So is this a way to make college more affordable, right? I mean, there's always been a barrier to entry that you have to pay for grounds, and there's a certain amount of faculty you have to pay to get into UVA. Is it possible now to sort of ooch into it and have a sort of sliding scale where we move away from a 4-year model? It's like, oh, I just went here for this many years, and you just tack on as many courses or years as are necessary before you're ready to enter the job field. Now, what comes out of that is then the job market is then going to have to change drastically. Employers, we're going to have to restructure how we're hiring. But you know what? That's going to happen anyway. There's no way we're going to go back to the way it was. We just have, some of us just haven't realized how big the impact is going to be in terms of recruiting.
All right, I'm going to get to some questions. I agree with what he's saying. It's the democratization of education. And eventually what's going to happen is college institutions are going to have to do student enrollment from a volume standpoint. They're going to lower the price point. They're going to do volume across the world. It's going to diminish the number of colleges that are out there. And only the strong brands are going to survive. Those strong brands are going to do volume virtually across the globe, and it's going to take college education from being an elitist mindset where you need to have $50,000, $60,000 a year just to go, and it's going to make it something that everyone in the world can afford. It's an exciting time. It's also a terrifying time as someone who owns a company called I Love Charlottesville that owns a building on the downtown mall and is very, just like you, very dependent on 20,000 people coming from August to June, basically year-round now. How are you as a CEO of a tutoring company? What's your temperature?
I think I would like to believe that that we're going to be able to restore the same amount of volume as we were expecting at the beginning of the year. But the reality, my perception is that now more than ever, tutoring companies and personalized instruction is more important than ever, because the university and the school systems are doing their best to sort of buttress support for students, but there's just this massive gaps. And so now more than ever, you need personalized instruction. But guess what? If I'm a parent and my husband was adjunct faculty at UVA and he just got laid off and nobody's hiring, unemployment's skyrocketing, we've only got 2 months of expenses, tutoring is a discretionary cost. So we're doing the same thing. We're thinking, all right, how do we pivot away from this premier tutoring company, which was, focused on getting students into top tier universities, and say, okay, well, first of all, how do we make this more affordable? And then how do we really prepare students for an unknown future? Right? That's what we're doing now, because we don't know necessarily that they're going to end up in a 4-year university, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen there. So that's what we're struggling with. And honestly, it comes up every day. Is like, should you be doing SAT prep if we don't know what's going to happen with the colleges?
12 different Facebook pages. We have this man's beautiful brain on right now, and the comments are coming in. John Kelly, great and important conversation. Makes me glad my wife and I sent our son to Clayborne. He says, this is an important conversation, Jerry. The challenge these private colleges and universities have is justifying that the in-person model is still worth $60 to $70K a year. John Kelly, you're 100% right on that right there. Let's get to questions. This one's coming in from, very quickly, Paul Johnston. Some students have reported not being challenged by the distance learning programs established at their schools this spring. Lee Elberson, what do you recommend for these students if this trend should continue into the fall semester? That's from Paul Johnston.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Glad to hear from you, Paul. He's a fellow squash player, or at least he was. Now we just watch squash YouTube videos.
Excitingly, exciting.
So, I would say almost without fail, every student is not feeling the same challenge that they did before. I expect this to carry on through the fall. And, the thing I keep going back to is about what is missing. We're missing the structure and accountability piece. And meeting with students for 2 days a week and assigning them 2 hours of homework to be turned in on a Sunday we know what's going to happen. Even my best students, I can tell you what happens. They get it assigned on Tuesday, and then Sunday they cram and do it all, and then they sleep till 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Wednesday through Saturday. So we need to find a way to implement structure and accountability, and this is where the stress is falling on parents, right? A lot of parents that we have at Clayborne realize this. They say, I'm trying to get him up early. I'm trying to get him to start going through either master class or watch YouTube videos. Do something to develop yourself. You don't have to do school, but you need to have some goal in mind. And I think this is where, parents can step in and say, what did you want to do this summer? What sort of projects do you want to accomplish? And help the student wake up and start accomplishing those goals on a small scale.
Guys, you're a popular guy. I mean, the questions are coming in rapidly here. We're not going to get to all these questions. We're going to do our best. Well, let's fire them rapid fire to you.
Okay.
Lee has this question. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing virtual workers that are used to being in an office environment? That is a really good question.
Yeah. So again, same thing that students struggle with, structure and accountability, but also, I think the struggle is how do you not feel saturated just looking at a screen and not being able to interact with your coworkers. So, virtual happy hours, virtual walks, things like that. I think that's what I see workers struggling with. I know I'm struggling with that. So trying to find a way to get some out time and get time with your coworkers that's not intently focused on accomplishing a goal. That was what was great about the office environment.
Catherine Matthews, Iron Poffles and Coffee says, the Iron Team loves you, Lee. We can't thank you enough for what you do. A lot of business owners watching, and one of the reasons they like watching the show here, we're live on 12 Facebook pages, is the entrepreneurial content we discuss and analyze. And I try to make it in an approachable and firsthand perspective and just relay 12 years in the trenches for myself as a business owner, 2 different businesses. I'll cut to the chase. We didn't get any federal funding. None of it, none of the PPP. We haven't gotten anything from a personal standpoint, my wife, anything like that. So business owners are asking on the show, and they're asking now, what are strategies you're doing if the federal relief doesn't come into play? I'll relay some of those strategies that I'm doing and then pick Lee Elberson's big, beautiful brain, because this guy's a mentor to business owners across the community, and discuss what the CIC is doing moving forward, because they have some big-time news. Lee, this is what I did. I talked with my banker. First, I voiced frustration of not getting it. Second, what I said was, all right, let's talk line of credit options. I tweaked the line of credit opportunities that we had. I didn't put them into play, but I upped them. And I knew if I need them, that they would be readily available. Second step I did was if there was any credit card balance that was out there, and there was a nominal one, but it was still out there and it was still accruing small interest, I did a balance transfer, and people should be mindful of that. You do get a slight ding on your credit for that, but I did a balance transfer to an 18-monther with no interest, and it will easily be paid off by then. And frankly, I should have already done that, okay? I own a lot of real estate, as you know, and I like to overpay it, because the return on investment is the interest rate for that particular property. Now, to preserve cash, I'm minimizing overpayment on debt service and paying more of the minimum to be able to preserve cash and make my burn rate even longer if I need to go down the burn rate road. Those are some of the topics that I'm trying to do. Let me get out of the way and hear some of the topics you're hearing.
Okay. So, I think it's important to understand why the SBA programs didn't reach us. I did some back of the envelope calculations a few minutes before this show, and I think the average payroll cost across the country is about $250 billion a month. So they were trying to disperse $350 billion. So if every company came in and asked for 2 months, there's $500 billion. It's already saturated. Plus, there's an extra 25% you could pull for other overhead costs, utilities and rent and things like that. So it's really no surprise that it's saturated. And the really unfortunate piece is it was always it was always going to
Yeah.
have complications. You're trying to push out funding in weeks when normally SBA processes take months. So it was always it's always doomed to have some serious issues. First come, first serve is a terrible model. It's gonna be seriously inequitable. My brother-in-law, Jared Edwards, who owns 8 Hats, he's a lot like you. He didn't assume we were going to get. He just went out there and he started hustling. He said, I need to just contact all of the people I do business with and just do what I can to drum up business so that I can get through this. So I think that the hustle model is something I see with our small businesses. If you're really small, you're lucky, you're nimble, you can pivot.
That's your advantage. That's your advantage.
That's your advantage. If you're a larger company, Clayborne, we were lucky. We got PPP. I submitted within an hour of it being launched at Blue Ridge Bank. Massive props to Blue Ridge Bank. I think they are one of the best banks around. They've been very helpful for us in the last several years. But that's all fine and good. You can pivot. You can do that, but ultimately you're missing out on revenue, and it does seem unfair that some businesses are getting funding and some businesses aren't. So we are very unique.
The
in
most
Charlottesville.
thing, I don't mean to interrupt you. The thing that was most unfair, and I'm glad to see some of the brands reimbursing the money. The thing was most unfair was 250 million of it went to publicly traded companies.
Yeah.
And then the Roof Chris of the world, the Shake Shacks of the world, those guys getting the money. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just, you're trying to distribute that amount of money in weeks. Think about the EIDL grants. I don't know if you know this, but like people applied for the economic injury disaster loan. The government decided to do up to $10,000 in grants and give you $1,000 per employee. People didn't get any notification. The companies that got it, just all of a sudden money just showed up in your account. Just no notification that it was coming, just like you got an X amount of dollars deposited into your account. And so that's what happens when you're trying to disperse money this quickly. So I went to a conference last week which was talking about how do you address this inequity in our communities. And I found myself chiming in many times because I realized Charlottesville and Albemarle County are very, very unique. Not only do we have a city and county that are taking matters in their own hands, we have CIC. I'm going to toot our horn, but we are already positioned to help under-resourced and minority-owned businesses in Charlottesville. We did $500,000 in loans last year, and the first thing we did was basically give an extension on those loans for 2 months. Say, look, you have much bigger problems right now to worry about. Don't worry about this. Then the city, they started stepping in. They had the Brace Fund. They put some more money into the Business Equity Fund. But again, that goes pretty quickly. Just on Wednesday, we launched the Business Recovery Fund, which is the city and the county getting together, distributing $300,000 to businesses, and CIC is a conduit for that. So all business owners apply for it. It's going to be a need and merit-based systems. It is not first come, first serve. You can go to cicville.org to apply. But I think that's a big piece, is like getting funding to the businesses. But even more than that, what I realized last week is the mentoring. Not only do we have CIC, but the SBDC, which is a program in CIC, I mean, they've seen hundreds of entrepreneurs in the last couple months. So our workshop is still going. We're doing it in a virtual environment, obviously. Our mentoring programs are as strong as ever. And I think that's what's really helping, is the entrepreneurs know that they have a practice hand to help them through this. So they're getting funding, they're getting education, and they've got mentoring and networking support. So that's what makes us unique, and that's what's happening in our community. Again, also another thing, the chamber just announced, Project Rebound. It's essentially, I mean, I signed up for it. It's essentially a task force or task forces to help us talk about a rebuilding strategy, right? Because the rebuilding is probably going to be, it's probably going to be years realistically, but like immediate action needs to happen in the next several months. So again, just a lot of support in Charlottesville.
Rachel Foster, hello. Andre Xavier says, Lee is a very intelligent guy. I wish him the best in business and always enjoy when he comes on this program. He's the Chief Executive Officer of CVille Hop-On Tours and the owner of Charlottesville Travel, a local travel agency. All right, let's close on this. Anywhere you want to go. And then I got Melissa Close-Hart coming up in about 45 seconds. She's the executive chef at Junction. Judah, let's get those photos ready of the takeout from the local last night that Melissa was a part of. Anywhere you want to go, Lee, you're live for 12 Facebook pages.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I think that now more than ever, we need to, everyone who knows a business owner, just reach out to them, ask them how they're doing. If you're watching this show, you've heard all the programs I've talked about, send them to CIC. Honestly, we're a great conduit to plug people into resources. We do our best to provide resources, whether it's mentoring, support, or recommendations to any businesses that see us. So use us as a conduit. And again, it's about sort of building this community. And so, Jerry, I guess the question I have for you is, when are we going to have a sort of Facebook live or sort of a powwow with all the business owners that we know, just so that everybody can get in the same like Zoom room or something and just have people pop in and talk about some of the programs they've had and what they've helped with. I think you're a big supporter of entrepreneurs.
I think we totally should do that. That's exactly, literally what we're trying to do with this network. We've been blessed in a position that maybe a lot aren't, and we're utilizing our resources here through this network of trying to put the Lee Elbersons out there. We have leaders and people that are doing different strategies for themselves, and I want to highlight them because maybe we can take some strategies that are in education or the entrepreneurial space, apply it to nonprofit, local government, whatever it may be. I think we all know that we're in a serious dogfight, but we're in this dogfight together. And I think the community has shown through August 12, 2017, and through some times in the past, like 2008, that we can respond and get better, but we got to get there. Peter Gaines says, Lee, thank you for your efforts on behalf of the entire community. There's a lot of comments coming in like that. You make us better. I hope we could get you back on the show in the future.
You don't have to hope, Jerry. You can always have me back on, man. Can I want to say one more thing?
Please.
My plug for Clayborne.
Yeah.
Anybody, if you're worried about your child's education, call us at Clayborne. We don't charge you to talk to you on the phone. We're happy to discuss what we are hearing from the school system, from the colleges, and what we're doing to implement virtual learning. We have tons of tools, and we're happy to share it with everyone.
I love it. And if you send me that shirt, I'm going to wear it start to finish, full day on a show.
All right, I got you on record with that, my friend.
I will do that. Thank you, Lee.
Always happy to be on.
You have a good one. Lee Elberson, great people. I think this is something that's really important. Jessica Davis on my Facebook page, and this show's on 12 Facebook pages. Melissa Close-Hart, we're going to go to you shortly, and we're going to give you full time to spotlight the local restaurant and its fabulous takeout and curbside program. I did it last night. It was amazing. I want to bombard the local with takeout orders. Jessica Davis says this, Leah and Jerry, could this pandemic be the breaking point for us to challenge the way we place barriers around education and the meaning of success, as well as the values we place on work for personal development versus the values we place on work for personal gain? It was specifically in regards to education. I'm going to throw this out to you. And John Kelly hit this very well. The longer virtual education goes, the more likely virtual education is the reality and classroom in-person education is a thing of the past. It's up to Jim Ryan to figure out his business model along with his executive team, his board, the board of visitors, etc. They have to ask themselves, do we want to do 20,000 people, 25,000 people in person at X amount of dollars per month, X amount of dollars per year, 25,000 people at 50, 60K per year? Or do we want to do 250,000 people worldwide in a virtual setting at, I don't know what the market is. What's the market for a college education? 5K? And if that decision is so extremely important to communities like Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Charlottesville, Virginia, so extremely important to towns where the employer is the university that have had so much success for such long periods of time. And if the decision is made to pivot to the virtual model, get ready. Judah, I'm going to reach out to Melissa Close-Hart. I'm Skyping her now. I'm giving you a heads up. Judah Whitcower is our director. Melissa Close-Hart is the executive chef at Junction Restaurant. And Melissa, when we get you on there, if we can get you to activate that camera so we can see you. I'm excited to see you, Chef. Judah, do we have your approval to get her on? We do. You are live on the I Love CVille show, my friend.
All right.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
What's good? Where you at?
Good. I'm working, trying to stay busy.
I love it. Give us the update of your fabulous restaurant group, how you guys were first to market, how you guys did a fabulous job of implementing curbside and to-go and takeout, and just give us a snapshot what's going on in Belmont.
The 10 for 10. We've got such a great team here with the 3 different companies between Junction, the local catering. Got a lot of great minds, and we've been trying to stay one step ahead as much as we could, and planning for anything unforeseen. And I think we've been pretty successful with that, and staying ahead with knowing that the restaurants were probably going to be closed. So we were ready to roll out delivery and takeout before we were deemed to have to do that. Adam was the one to come up with the 10 for 10 idea, and it seems to have taken off. We're doing great business, keeping us busy, keeping most of our staff employed, which is really the most important thing. I mean, obviously, thin profit margins in this business, and 10 for 10 is not, we're not breaking in money, but we're keeping our staff with their families fed and getting their bills paid, and that's what really matters right now. We'll come out on the other side of this and figure it out. What's really amazing me, we still every single day have people buying the pay it forward meals. I really expected that to drop off after the first couple of weeks of, help everybody out and then just kind of take care of yourselves. But Charlottesville has proven me wrong. So every day we're finding new ways to use those donations. And I think we've done close to, if not over, 500 meals since we started that have been donated. Whether that be to people that are out of work and need food and just email us. We've been doing food to the hospital. We've done food to pack them. I've sent some staff meal to restaurant friends. We're just trying to do our best.
Comments coming in. You guys have Floride Restaurant watching the show as we speak. Catherine Matthews, Iron Poffel watching as we speak, live on 12 Facebook pages. Judah, show the food from last night and the fabulous experience that I had over at the local restaurant. I want you guys to bombard the local restaurant with orders. It's extremely affordable and feeds a ton of people in your family, and it's done very effortlessly in Belmont. You guys, I hyped you guys, and I think it's 100% accurate. When did you guys realize that you better pivot really quickly to curbside and takeout? Because you guys were like the first.
Well, I think what day were we on the show with the whole gang?
Right.
Do you remember what?
You guys did it. Did you do it that day? I was trying to remember that.
I think we started it that day.
And it's so crazy because both you and Wilson started it that day.
Yeah. And I think March 15th was our last day of regular service for both restaurants, if I remember correct. Because that was a Sunday, and I think it was a Wednesday. So we did our last service on the 15th, so we started the delivery and takeout on the 18th.
It's amazing. It's amazing the innovation there. You post a lot of content on your page of the future of the space, of the future of restaurants. I'm getting out of the way. What do you think it is?
Well, again, we're trying to stay ahead of what we have to do. So Adam Fraser, our owner, keeps up with the current news, keeps up with what's going on the West Coast, because I think they're going to open up and they're looking at things. So, half capacity for restaurants, possible temperature taking of clients and staff, wearing of gloves, disposable menus. I mean, we're already measuring our dining rooms, laying out the dining rooms to have half capacity, 6 feet, just to know what we can do when we open, whenever that happens, because I know it will. And we want to be prepared the best we can to start as fast as we can. And our goal is to come out of this on the other side and still be a successful business. And it terrifies me what's going to happen to the environment and the landscape of restaurants.
Which part most? Fine dining?
I think fine dining, was already kind of waning to begin with.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be feasible. I posted an article last night from Danielle Hamilton from Prune, which is she's been one of my idols for a long time, and just the heartbreak of it, and just what was happening to restaurants before this and where it was all going and now where it's going to go. I really feel like it's probably going to go back to a lot more grassroots kind of side of the restaurants and, less of the Instagram pictures and this, that, and the other. But, I think you have to look at different, not necessarily rebrandings, but different ways of running your restaurant and have those in place before we're able to open up and just know what your options are. And that's where we meet 3 to 5 times a week with the management staff and just kind of spitball ideas like, well, if they come out with this being the protocol, what can we do? If they come out with this, what's the protocol? Because we want to be ready to be able to serve the community and our employees as soon as possible with a new way of doing things.
You're getting props right now from Bashir. Bashir's watching the program from Bashir's on the downtown mall. He says, hey. You guys are in a unique position at Junction and the local, and here's from a layman's perspective why. Reason number one, your restaurant owner owns the real estate. That's
Yes.
a very unique position to be in. Peter Castiglione and Christian Kelly at Maya Restaurant also in that position. Reason number two, your restaurants are large.
Huge.
So if we go into the needing space between diners 6 feet, you guys are okay with that. I'm extremely worried of, say, a Petit Pois restaurant.
Yeah. It's, if you already have only 30 to 40 seats and now you're having to go to 10 to 20, profit margins are already thin enough. And especially Petit Pois that's on the downtown mall, the rent down there is just amazingly high. I don't even know if you'll have enough income to come in to pay your overhead,
right,
let alone your staff, your insurance, everything.
And we saw that with the downtown grill.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's why they closed, was just the rent side of it.
Another unique position and we've seen this with already, is you guys in a lot of ways can be the brand that feeds the neighborhood. I think the restaurants that are going to succeed and come out positively and successful without this are the ones in a lot of ways that can bring the food to the eater, the food to the diner, as opposed to the customer coming to the food. The food's got to go to the customer now, and you guys can really do that in a neighborhood.
Yep. And I think delivery and takeout is going to, even once things are reopened, I know my in-laws have already said that they don't plan on leaving. Once Virginia's open, they're going to still stay quarantined for 2 to 4 weeks. I think delivery and takeout is going to still be an important part of this industry going forward.
And that's the question that just came in from Andre Xavier. And he says, CEO, co-founder, Charlottesville Hop On Tours, Melissa, is takeout and delivery the new norm? What percentage of business is this going to be moving forward? That's a good question. Hard to predict.
Question. Yeah. I think that everything is so impossible to predict at this point. Even with us trying to come up with new models for if this scenario happens, if that scenario happens, nobody knows. If I had to guess, let's say the restaurants get to open back up at 50% capacity. If I had to take a wild guess, 30% is still going to be delivery and takeout, anywhere between 30 and 50%.
Aaron,
I think there are going to be enough people biting at the bit to get out of the house and socialize and be around people.
I agree.
But I still think there's a big part of the world that's not ready for that.
Laura says, I live in the neighborhood right around the corner from Junction. Jerry, can you ask your guests why they chose to keep the local open instead of Junction? I absolutely love Melissa's food at Junction. That's a good question.
It is a good question. A lot of it is overhead costs. You're looking at, both buildings are very big. We have completely closed up Junction, not as a business by any means, but the building itself. Air conditioners have been turned off, coolers have been unplugged, everything's been moved over, and most of it is just for streamlining of keeping our costs down, so that way we can, in turn, give to our community a very affordable food and drink beverage program.
And you guys are killing it. Show the pics from last night if you could again on screen. This question coming in for you, this is from Grace. She says, Jerry, can you ask Chef what she thought of Downtown Grill closing?
That one surprises me. They've been here, what was it, 21 years?
Long time.
They've been here.
Yeah.
And they're a Charlottesville institution, and it really struck a chord. I was having, we all have good days and bad days. And it happened to be when I read that, I woke up, I couldn't sleep, I had insomnia, I was up at 4 in the morning, and that was one of the first things I saw. And it really struck a chord, it's the beginning of the end of it, and to know that a place that's that established, that has that much local ties, is closing their doors, it scares me for a lot of the new restaurants that have opened in the last year or two, lots of small restaurants, people that are, not only are their employees living paycheck to paycheck, but a lot of these companies and these restaurants are living paycheck to paycheck. And, when you're on such, anywhere between 2 and 5% profit, there's not a lot in the coffers for this kind of thing. You might have enough to sustain a hurricane or a power outage or something like that. But, we're already at over a month at this, and money's running out. Running out for a lot of people.
Jennifer Grayson says, Chef, I miss you at Barbersville. I wish you nothing but the best, but I cannot wait for Junction to open again. This topic, this is a Darwinism, survival of the fittest question coming at you. Okay? A lot of restaurants we know are going to close from this. The ones that come out on the other side and survive are going to be ones that are led by people like you and Adam and Maddie that have been in the game for a long time. That's going to take an incredibly oversaturated market and potentially reduce it to half the amount of players that are left in the space. That could, on the other side, for the ones that survive this, could then return margins back to what they should be.
I think there's a bright light for a lot of parts of our society because of this thing. I think.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I think that we're now seeing what problems are in not just the restaurant world, but our society. Things like healthcare and education, and how everybody. I think I saw a little meme or thing that was like, how can you call it a booming economy when people can't survive without 2 weeks of pay? And I think just coming out of this and just seeing some social dynamics, hopefully will change for the better because of this. And I think for the restaurant, you and I have discussed many a times that Charlottesville is a saturated market. Labor market's almost impossible. 6 months ago, no one could find a decent cook. No one.
6 months ago, you were putting on Facebook, I need a dishwasher, and I'm going to feed them with a staff meal and a good pay and a drink if they're of age. Now people would be fighting and clawing for that job.
Yeah, I think that it's going to, it's going to thin the herd in some way. And I do think that it'll be a survival of the fittest. I think it'll be people that are willing to adapt, people that are, I think that you have to stand strong on your morals and your beliefs, but you have to be able to adapt to what the society and the community wants. And that's true even in a great time for restaurants. If you're not willing to change for what your community wants, you're going to lose business. And I think this is going to be more so in this environment than it has been before.
I agree 100%. More questions coming in for you. You're a well-liked person here. Jerry, please don't use my name, but please ask your guest, the chef who I admire, what she thinks of food trucks. I'm thinking about buying one. Does she think that could be a solution for restaurants and serving people?
I do. I think that a lot of the food trucks right now, especially with the quarantine and the stay home, stay in place, doing the neighborhood drops, give us a call, order your food. We'll be in Forest Lakes on Wednesday. We'll be in Woolen Mills on Tuesday. We'll be out in Crozet on Friday.
I respect it.
Yeah. And it's proven to be great because there's definitely people that don't even really want to leave their neighborhoods. And again, like you were saying, it's the restaurants bringing the food to people. And I believe food trucks have always been in the up and coming in the last 5 to 10 years, and I think it's going to continue to.
You're a leader. What do you tell to all the people that are scared? You know what? Scared out of their minds right now. You always call me a leader, and I appreciate it. I just do what I do. Are you scared? Are you scared?
I am scared. I'm scared for a lot of things. For my business is probably the one that Adam does such a great job. We're such a family here. Adam would never let his family go under, so I know I've got security in that side of my life. But just lately, I was telling my mother the other day that I kind of feel useless right now. I'm so used to being that 50 to 70 hours a week. I'm working hard, working. And we were one of the lucky restaurants. We got PPP, and so we've been able to bring back any part of our staff that wanted to come back. We've had a few front of the house people that have opted to stay on the unemployment and care program. But 96% of our staff is back.
Good for you.
And that's just, it's great.
Yeah.
And at the same time, with taking a catering company, 2 restaurants, and putting it into one, we're all kind of fighting for those hours. So I'm letting my hourly people take on a lot more hours, and I'm doing a lot more administrative stuff, which has probably been always my least favorite part of it. I like my hands dirty. I like a knife in my hand. So I feel different. I mean, for 35 years, I've worked like a dog in the kitchen, and now it's like, wow, I'd let my staff do it because they want to do it, and there's a lot with the PPP. I was talking to my brother about this, that some people can get more money on unemployment, and even some of my hourly cooks could, but they've chosen to come back because they love to work and they've got to have something to do, and that warms my heart. That just we're all family, and we're all doing this, and we're all in it together. We're all going to come out on the other side okay. But yeah, I'm scared. Life is going to be different. I just don't know how different. I'm always the planner. I've got the prep list. I know what I got to do, and I know when I need to do it. And this uncertainty makes me kind of crazy. My OCD and my planning side of me doesn't know what to do.
Dude, I love and respect you so much. She is so good in these type of settings with her words. Chef Shantina Hash is watching right now. Chef Diana Sabitri watching. Laura Fonner is giving you hearts right now. She's watching the program. All right.
Yeah, Laura's my rock.
She's
we
amazing.
Talk about every day.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this. I want to highlight the locals takeout and curbside very quickly. Before we do, this is the question that's coming in, and you've touched on this. Let's touch on it again. What do you think is the future of restaurants in Charlottesville?
I think adaptability is the biggest key. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to know exactly what we need, and I think it's just being able to adapt to what needs to happen. I think we're going to definitely continue in the takeout and delivery environment. I think things are going to be, and plus money's going to be tight. That's where I think the fine dining side of things are going to not be as strong as they used to be. I think moving to more fast casuals, more accessible food, more accessible with the amount you have to pay for it. But on the other hand, this is part of the scary part. You're going to have more. If you lower your prices, you got to bring more in.
You got to do volume.
You don't have enough seats.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, like I said, the article from the chef from Prune it hits on that really hard, that for so long we've kept our prices so low to keep people in, that people don't realize that they're always getting such a great deal, even though it's $30 plate. Why am I paying $30 where we're only making $4 on that plate? And now you're taking away half our customers. So there's going to have to be a balance, and you're just going to have to find a way to adapt and be able to do what's best for your area of town, your type of restaurant, and your customer base.
I think Junction and the local is going to come out of this as one of the strong surviving. I truly, truly mean that. We're going to outline why. Close the show with the takeout and curbside, and let's blow up the restaurant.
10 for 10. We offer 10 entrees. We're constantly changing the menu. 10 entrees for $10. That's delivered, taxes included. So you got a family of four, $40 brought to your house or picked up curbside. Alec is doing a great beverage program. The drinks, I believe, you get 2 drinks for $15. It's just pour over ice when you get it home. Wine and beer and ciders available, of course. And for anyone out there that cannot afford a meal for their family, please go to the local-cville.com/10 for 10 and there follow the links. We just email us and we're happy to send you and your family dinner.
You guys are awesome. I love you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Jerry.
You're the best. You have a good weekend.
You do the same.
Thank you, Melissa. Melissa
Thank you.
Close-Hart, guys, we are lucky to have Melissa Close-Hart. The photos you saw on screen was my family. I have my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, my wife, and our 2-year-old son. We did it last night at the local, and it was banging. The mushroom pasta dish was amazing. The mac and cheese and the bacon wrap meatloaf, absolutely fabulous. I'm going to close on this, some items that I learned from today's show. I believe that Junction, I believe that the local, and I believe restaurants like Maya Restaurant in Midtown are prime for survival for COVID-19 in Charlottesville. The reasons why. The restaurateurs, the people that own the restaurants, also own the real estate, so they can offer the restaurant relief potentially from a rent standpoint, from payment from one company to another. That's going to help them. Reason number two, the local and Junction in particular are in a neighborhood. So it's much easier to get the food to people when you're in the neighborhood. Reason number 3, their dining rooms are ginormous. Maya, the local, and Junction. Those are 3 big restaurants. The local and Junction, much bigger than Maya, but those are 3 very big restaurants. When we return back to eating in restaurants, you're going to need 6 feet of space between guests for a little while. And the bigger restaurants versus a smaller one like Petit Pois, I love Brian Hellerberg and Brian Jones' steak frites at Petit Pois. Petit Pois, one of the best restaurants in Charlottesville, but it's really tiny. When you have limited seating, you're going to be impacted by this. The future of restaurants, from my standpoint, as someone who sees a couple steps ahead, the future of restaurants in Charlottesville, Virginia, is going to be this. This is what I think. You're going to have some icons that survive, like Maya and Junction and the local, will people will go to from a dining standpoint. The other ones are going to have less dining, and they're going to have to adapt the model to take out curbside and delivery. I think you may see less waiters potentially, and more people expoing food from a restaurant kitchen to a car that's waiting outside. So you're going to see less waiting of tables and more of running of food from a kitchen to a car that's waiting outside. Maybe someone like a Peloton station. I love that place. Curtis Shaver, one of my best friends. Maybe a place like that can employ a delivery team. The waiters are then delivery teams on bikes. Maybe use the payroll for in-house delivery on bikes with a branded shirt and everyone on a bike delivering food around Peloton, down West Main Street, down to the UVA corner, Midtown, around 10th and Page, around Preston. I think the ones that are going to survive are going to be 2 different kinds. You're going to have some icons like Junction, Maya, and the local that survive for anniversary type deals where you go in to the restaurant and you dine in. And those guys, I outlined why I think they're going to survive. I think the remaining ones are going to be doing food from a to-go or takeout standpoint, most of their business. I'm very curious to see what happens to all these restaurants that are going to have to go from Class A office space, Class A restaurant space, to a Class B or C because their model's pivoting from dine-in to go and take out. I'm curious to see what happens with that real estate. That's something to follow. This is the I Love CVille show. I'm Jerry Miller. So much I didn't even get to today, but I have so much other work that I got to get to for our businesses. I'm going to table these notes until Monday's program. Monday, we have a good show lining up on Monday. Tuesday, I already have Catherine Matthews lined up. Catherine Matthews is the owner of Iron Poffles and Coffee. Her business, I think, is primed for success on Tuesday. Monday's wide open. We'll work on that. I'm Jerry Miller. Enjoy your weekend. Keep it local. Go to the local tonight. Go to the local this weekend. Go to the local the next 3 or 4 days, the local restaurant in Belmont. You won't be disappointed with their takeout and their 10 for 10 program. I'm out of here. Take care, guys.